had to reflect on how I got to that point in my life. And then what to do next.
So welcome to Unleashed Learning TV and Unleashed Learning Radio for our podcast listeners. Now, if you need some inspiration, you want to strengthen your mental health, and you want to feel some hope and courage, Ben Farinazzo is here. You know, in 2015, Ben suffered significant mental and physical challenges and overcame seemingly insurmountable odds as part of his inspiring journey to represent Australia at the Invictus Games here in Sydney. He battled post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, and a broken neck, and back to compete in indoor rowing and powerlifting. Today, he's an ambassador for Australia Day, for Lifeline, Soldier On, Kookaburra Kids, and other charitable organizations. May I suggest you do yourself a favor and listen to this special Unleashed Learning TV episode. Okay, so Ben, welcome to Unleashed Learning TV. I'm really, really excited that you're here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
In cold Sydney and cold Canberra. Yeah, Canberra was freezing. So Ben, as we were talking before, what we do at Unleashed Learning is we work with schools, businesses, and organizations to embed a teaching and learning system so that those folks can make learning stick for everyone. And the reason we wanted to interview you so badly is that one of the things that makes learning stick is the educator or presenter, who they are. There's this connection between who the person is and the ways we get learning to stick for everyone. And we really wanted to focus on their mental health and thinking about mental health and our well-being. And we thought you would be the perfect person to talk to raise that conversation. So thanks for being here.
Right. But I hope I live up to the expectation.
I think we will. I hope we do. I think you're doing great work. So I thought we would start, if people don't know you, about 2015.
Yes.
And what took place for you in 2015, if you don't mind sharing that.
I woke up to find myself in a living nightmare. I had been in a mental health hospital for a little over a year, and during my recovery, I'd come home for Christmas, got a mountain bike and gone for a ride. I'd slipped off the edge of a bridge, went headfirst into a creek line below. I woke up on Australia Day 2015 in hospital, and the doctor said to me, "Big fella, do not move. You've broken your neck and your back in 5 places. If you move, you could be a quadriplegic or you could die." And my life stopped, and I had to reflect on how I got to that point in my life. And then what to do next. Yeah. I hit rock bottom.
You hit, dark night of the soul is what I've heard people call it, is those dark nights of the soul that you hit in a big way.
Yeah, I describe it to my friends and family as walking through the valley of the shadow of death. It wasn't just pain here and pain there, it was pain everywhere. Internally, all throughout my body, and I was in complete agony. Didn't know what to do. Yeah, it was a very dark time in my life.
So Ben, the next question I've got in my mind, I'm already thinking almost minimizes it, right? And I don't want to minimize by asking this question.
Yeah.
Because it's a journey, and you've gone through the dark night in many ways, right? To share how to create some light in those spaces. So my question to you is, how did you overcome that dark night, the challenge that you were facing? What did that look like to go into that space? What did you have to do, or how did you go overcome it?
You asking me those questions sends goosebumps down my legs. I closed my eyes and thought to myself, if I could live for just one more day, what would that be like? And I pictured giving my wife a kiss on the cheek, hugging my children, just sitting down on the grass in my backyard and running my fingers through the grass while looking up at the trees in the sky. And I even went so far as then picturing what it'd be like to be back in a rowing boat again on the lake. and feeling that sensation again. It was from that moment then I was surrounded by tremendous support by an army of doctors, psychologists, counsellors, physiotherapists, all led by my wife. Mm. And it was my wife's love and leadership that embraced this broken frame and body and really helped me over the next few years get back onto my feet and get back into life. And to this day, I'm very grateful to everyone that embraced not only me, but embraced my wife and our family and supported us through that journey, because that was not something that I could have just done alone.
I'm just throwing this in. I'm just guessing to allow that kind of community of support to support you also requires a lot of vulnerability on your part. I'm just guessing from the way you described that. My first thought was, man, we got to be vulnerable and let people help us.
It's very, very hard to be vulnerable. I mean, I was an army officer, CEO. I didn't practice vulnerability really much. I definitely hadn't learned that from my father or my grandfather. It's not the way we rolled. And when it was suggested to be vulnerable, it just wasn't in my vocabulary. But it is something that I needed to learn and embrace. And I needed to open myself to the help and support of others. And that taught me so many things. It taught me that people are caring and loving, and there are wonderful human beings out there that are selfless, and that the world is a good place. Mm. It also taught me that just because you're down and out doesn't mean it's over. And that, you learn those lessons to get back up on your feet, and in turn you can pass it on to help the next person get back on their feet. There's a lot of learnings in there, and I see that every day. And where I then experienced it was seeing a lot of people at the Invictus Games who had those same learnings and were open, on display, under the bright lights, sharing the strength of vulnerability. Unbelievable.
I'm saying, you probably already know this. There's a lot of my own work. There's a connection between who people are and what they do. There's a connection between when I talk to educators or presenters, like, why are you doing this? And they'll often tell me these stories, and now I want to go help make things better, or I learned this. And so you're kind of perfect example, especially for the next question too, is the connection between who we are and what we teach or we lead or the kind of work we do in the world. So if I can ask you and I think you've in some ways answered it, is what inspires you as an educator of mental health today?
So much that I could have learned earlier in my life that would have prevented me getting to that dark place in 2015. I thought there's so many lessons that I could have learned, or so many things that were out there that I didn't connect with, that I wasn't aware of, that could have prevented the rock bottom moment that happened to me. And I just wanted to help other people, to support them, to realize those things in their life in order to prevent them from getting into a dark place. Also to inspire a bit of hope. Hope can be a double-edged sword at times, but I found it's really helpful when you're in a dark moment to know that even after the darkest night, that the sun will shine the next day. And sometimes in those darkest moments, you need to hear that message. So I encourage other people to be vulnerable, to share their stories, and in doing so, to reach out for help and to help others. That's what inspires me.
God, when you say that, it makes me think like, why you're in front of that group, or why you're doing what you're doing, or you're really connected to that purpose. And had you known some things ahead of time, it might not have been such a dark place. But I'm also thinking the hope piece is I can only imagine getting to hear you if I'm in a really dark space to say another day or things can get better. And I'm an example of that. So
Yeah.
you're a perfect example of what we teach who we are, right? In so many ways. And you're a living testament to that.
Thanks, mate. I mean, the challenge here was I didn't go looking for that.
Yeah.
I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask to go out and speak to people the like. It just happened, and it happened because there's people in the audience that walk up to you afterwards saying, "What you described is where I am at right now."
Yeah.
And I didn't know that there are other people in the world that had gone through this, and now I know that I need to do something, and that I can get through.
And I can get through.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, like that is so moving. I'm like, thanks. Thanks for sharing that with me. That is wonderful. All the best. Yeah.
Also makes me think, before I jump to the next question, we were talking about you got to be vulnerable to allow that support to work with you. But I'm guessing for the work you do, like a lot of educators, you have to be vulnerable even today in sharing these stories and sharing who you are and sharing what has taken place and what you continue to learn. So it sounds like vulnerability is really a big piece of how you're able to share your gifts and receive gifts from others.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, vulnerability allows you to put your hand up and ask for help. It allows you to share stories with your friends. And it allows you to take action to address issues in your life. If you're not vulnerable to those things and think that you're invincible, then you're kidding yourself. It doesn't mean you need to go blurt, blurt, blurt all the time, but to realise that as human beings, we are fragile, and that we can break physically and mentally. None of us are immune to that, no matter how tough we think we are.
Darn it! Darn it!
My dad,
that's right.
He's tough.
Yeah. I'm just going to throw it. It also makes me think about how masculinity, when you're describing, like I wasn't raised that way, right? How it can be a hindrance for us to address our mental health and our well-being, because if the masculinity is like that, you do it on your own or whatever that thing is, that's not the way to healing, the way you're describing it.
No, I remember when I went to hospital the first time, I was trying to come to terms with the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder that I'd been given, and I had a padre wanted to come over and have a talk to me, and I thought, I'm really not in the mood to be talking about Christianity at the moment. I just need my own dark space over in the corner. But he tracked me down and he said, Ben, I've noticed that you've been out there doing the morning runs, or morning walks. You've been going to all the lessons. You've been doing this. And I said, yeah, because I'm going to conquer this thing. He said, well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because perhaps there's a different way. I said, what way? He said, maybe you need to be gentle with yourself and give yourself opportunities to heal and see every day in this world as a learning experience. Do you think you could do that? Even as I'm saying it now, I can feel it well up. But that advice changed my life. Yeah, it was fantastic. So I'm glad he called me.
Well, I mean, it's the perfect time for the next question, because, I mean, this is like the dream conversation for what we talk a lot about who we are and how to participate in the world and help other people. So if I can ask the next question, I'm looking over here. It says, what do you want people to know about mental health that you think would helps, I know it's a big question, but would help support us, especially during difficult times?
Mental health is health. Mental health, physical health is all health. It's a connected system. Look after your mental health as you would your physical health. During dark times, or as we've been through COVID and lockdowns and all the rest of it, take the time to nourish and care for not just your physical health, but also your mental health. And if you're finding, even if it's just a walk, that can help. in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be a big step. It can be a little step. It can be reaching out to someone, letting them know that you're not doing that well. Or it could just be an act of deciding to eat healthy for the week, not have a drink, and go for a few walks. It's those little simple things that will add up in time. And consistently doing that, that's what's really important. So think of your whole body as a system, and nurture it, be gentle to it. It's your overall health. It's tied.
Makes me think when I asked the first question, you said you thought about touching the grass and connecting to your wife or the people around you. And I was thinking, as you described that, it really comes down to those little things that actually are such huge things that it can be overlooked with everything else that might be going on. But that image of touching the grass,
Yes.
or going for a walk, or being around people that we love and love us, how
Yes.
it brings it back down to what really matters, it seems to me, the way you're describing it.
Yeah, I mean, if you had one day left to live, $1 million doesn't help that much.
No.
I mean, it could be like a Hangover 4 movie or something like that. But I just find, for me and for many that I know who have challenges with their mental health, it's those little things. It's the patting their dogs. It could be talking to a friend. It could be going for a walk. Little things like that, they add up. Yeah. Put them into your tin, mental health tin. They add up over time.
And also, it just makes me think about the people we need. We can't do it alone because, you describe your partner and the tribe around you and people, right? And you saying, hey, I'm having a hard time, and being able to say, I'm having a hard time, is really important to that journey that I'm listening to you describe. And we need each other is what it reminds me over and over and over, right?
Absolutely. And I think if you have missed those steps and you are somewhere down the path of being too well, get over yourself and go and seek help.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I would have given myself a right old rocket up the backside and said, go and seek help. But I was like, no, it'll be all right because I'm the one that people come to for help. Mm-hmm. Well, I was wrong. And I think I believed in my own BS, and that landed me in hot water. So, reach out and get help. Some people say to me, I went and saw the doctor and they said that, I needed help with this, and I went home and told my wife. My wife said, wasn't surprised. No, she said, you've been like that for 15 years. I said, I said, that's a very common thing, and it happens both ways, but the idea here is, sometimes we don't catch it in its early stages, only when it starts becoming acute. And get over yourself, go and speak to your GP and ask for help.
And get some help.
That can open up a doorway to a lot of support and learnings.
And if we don't have to suffer in silence, why suffer in silence? Because there's people that help us, is what I hear you saying. Like, you don't have to do it alone. Your body was in pain. Your psyche was in pain. All was in pain. And why you can't do that alone, right? To get out of that space.
No, I mean, sometimes we think we can, but then we're delusional. Yeah. There are moments when we can actually stiff up a lip and be stoic about it and push through the pain and get through, and I appreciate that, but then there's moments when you move beyond that or you're not pushing through correctly, and that's when you start getting into trouble and really need the help of professionals.
Well, so I'm sorry I interrupted you for that last piece.
No, you need professionals and loved ones.
Yeah, and loved ones. Yeah. So my last question is this. We wanted to ask you this last question, and it's this. So we work with professional learning teams, we work with schools, to help them make learning stick for everyone. And what are the skills that you've learned regarding mental health on your mental health journey that you think have served you well as an educator or teacher? So when you're presenting or you're working with groups, what in that journey has has served you well. I don't want to minimize what you went through, but served you well in the ways you teach and present and get your message across?
There's a constant learning piece in there, in the sense that I've become a lot more aware of who I am and my strength and my vulnerabilities around that, what I can do and what I'm not capable of doing, or what causes me stress. Which doesn't mean I don't go there, but I'm just aware of what those things are. Sometimes I trip over myself and come across a new learning. It's like, I didn't realise that. So I used to think that dealing with mental health in my case was like treating a broken arm. I'd get it repaired, it'd be good again, I'll be back in the gym, it'll be fine. But my doctor at the time said to me, Ben, with your diagnosis, it's more like cancer. Mm-hmm. If you don't look after yourself and keep on top of this, it can kill you. I was like, wow. Okay, what do I need to know? So it's an ongoing learning process because I never want to go back. Perhaps the biggest thing that I learned from this, though, is then establishing boundaries.
Wow.
Boundaries around myself and what I am involved in. I love now doing a number of ambassador roles around the country with different organisations as an Australia Day ambassador. On the proviso that if I am unwell and can't show up, then that's okay, because I'm doing the best that I can. And so the organisations that I'm connected with understand this and make leeway for that. I'm like, now who we got just in case? So then it takes that pressure off me, takes that pressure off them, and it establishes clear boundaries for myself, for my family, and for the organisations that I work with, and it makes it a lot more manageable. And maybe that's something we could each learn to do in our own workplaces, in our own lives.
What I heard you say was, and I don't want to, if I say it wrong, but
you're
reflective. You're a reflective educator in person in a deeper way now, and you also know that your mental health is almost like diabetes in the sense that you can't have sugar in your system for the rest of your life. And now you've created boundaries. So you're not trying to save the world. What you're trying to do is do good work from a place of understanding who you are and what you can participate in. And so you're doing it in a boundary kind of way, so you're effective at what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that just looks everything from making sure I eat well, exercise regularly, love the ones that I love, stay connected with the broader community. And I get those things right, it's like concentric circles, then I'm able to go out and engage with larger audiences and major projects. But if I can't, then I start bringing those boundaries back. And that might just look like me sitting down, being quiet, having some quiet time while I bring myself back into alignment. So, yeah.
I mean, honestly, Ben, I just cannot thank you enough for this conversation. You are a reminder to me, we teach who we are, and the journey you've been is informing who you are to help others in intentional and planned for ways, but you know some stuff about yourself and you're sharing, you went through dark and you're creating light. And I'm hoping that this interview gets light to the people that need some light right now. And I really want to thank you for the work you do for the world, my friend.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for the opportunity, for giving me a voice and for all you're doing. And hopefully this will reach out and touch someone who needs it.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Ben.
You, mate.
I'm going to stop.
So now it's your turn. We want to hear from you. So our question is this. What is your one big takeaway from Ben's discussion with us? Now, some of the best conversations take place after the episode, so jump over there. And if you haven't grabbed it, grab our free ebook, 5 Essentials for Teaching, Presenting, or Running Professional Learning in a COVID, Post-COVID World.